for me to talk to you on this topic. So the suggestion was to make it more conversational, more Q&A, instead of showing your slides, showing your lecture. I think you have enough lectures, right, already without this. So let's make it conversational. So if you have any questions or comments, please ask, please raise your comments, and then we'll start the discussion.
To ask a question, you can unmute yourself or write in the chat just.
So, well, maybe I can start with a question. So if I understood correctly, the main purpose of this event is to study different career perspectives, right, in physics. Is that the main question?
Yeah, and also research opportunities. Okay,
so let me start with the second question, research opportunities. Simply put, all the professors, all the faculty who are active in research, which is true for most of the new faculty, all of them, all the faculty want good students, okay, good students. When I say good students, what do I mean by that? I mostly mean students who are willing to work hard, who are serious, who are willing to work hard, okay? Almost all the professors are looking for such students. So in physics department, we have now 13 or 14 faculty, and all of us are working in different fields. And so there are lots of opportunities to work in different fields. So if you want to work, faculty will be very happy to provide you with a project, with opportunities, and so on. Okay, so this is about the research. For career, so instead of talking about different perspective, let me first give a real example from my situation. Okay, so one thing you have to keep in mind that when you talk about job perspectives in the world is that right now we are really living in a global world. Job market is global. So a lot of students in Kazakhstan, a lot of people in Kazakhstan are working abroad, and vice versa. A lot of people from abroad are working in Kazakhstan. For example, look at a new faculty. Almost all of them are from all over the world. So job market is international nowadays. When you look for a job, you will not necessarily be looking in one geography. Job market is international, okay? And even if you want to stay at one place, having international experience is really, really good thing, because international experience is international experience, right? First, you can, if you study if you work and study and live in an English-speaking country, it will help you to improve your English, for example, right? But not only that, when you work in different cultures, different environments, different geographies, it helps you to extend your perspective. You can look at things from broader perspective, because you will work with different people, and always different people tend to look at things from different angles. And that experience, that international experience that you get, especially when you do international experience, that is really, really useful experience, because it broadens your own perspective. And in my opinion, the best measure there are different measures of intelligence, different ways you can measure intelligence. One of the best way to measure intelligence is from how many different points of view you can look at the problem. Okay, not only one way. If you can look at it from different perspectives, from different angles, in my opinion, that's the best measure of intelligence. And you get that by getting international experience. Even if you want to stay in Kazakhstan, for example, for the rest of your life, it's still recommended to have some international experience, at least for some years, 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on situation, depending on what you want, and so on. Okay, so that's one component. So job market is really, really global nowadays. Second perspective, or second point. Now, this is about physics majors. Okay, when you study physics, I think you get 3 of the most important and the most universal pillars of modern skills, so to say. Okay, so first of all, it's your problem-solving skills, mathematical skills, and computer skills. sorry. So if you know how to program, if you know how to use math, if you know how to solve problems using basic physics principles, you have a very broad range of skills, These are not the only skills that you need to have. I mean, but when it comes to technical skills, okay, now I clarified myself. When it comes to technical skills, three important pillars: math, programming, or computer skills, to put it roughly, and physics skills. Okay, these are very important pillars, which gives you broad foundation to develop your skills further. Okay, this is an opening statement, so we can discuss it further. Okay. So, are there any questions or comments?
Yes, we have Murat. You can ask.
Hello, Professor ABDIKAMALOV.
Right.
I'm a foundation student currently, and I'm interested in choosing physics as my major, but I'm not sure about what we are going to do about the activities of this major. And
You mean
what
during
can
university
you
or
tell?
after university?
During university.
Okay, so thank you for this question. So during university, it's mostly studying and also research. But I think other students who are here can give you better answers than I can give you. Okay, maybe Olzhas, can you maybe give your perspective to this?
Hello.
To this question.
Yeah, 1 second. Hello, everyone. Yeah, of course. So as Professor said, it's better to have like programming skills and so on, but don't expect that you need to know everything before actually being a physics student. You can learn all this stuff on your bachelor's degree. So for example, as a good example, that I haven't touched programming at all before the first course, the first like CSCI course, and I was already a physics student. And you can pretty much learn many things during the whole 4 years of physics major, starting from math, because you will need to take math courses as a requirement. Also, you will learn some programming skills. Like there are some useful courses in physics major, like I forgot the name, computational physics. So this major contains, I think, not if not all, but the most of the basic courses that teach you like basic stuff like math, computational stuff, and physics. But probably you would like to hear something more specific, right? So what aspect of sort of physics life are you most interested in? Or which part do you want to hear more about?
I'm not sure, but what about the career after the graduation?
Can I comment about the career? I wanted to give you an example from my own situation. So before coming to Nazarbayev University, I was working in the United States, and we are working in a big group of one professor. So we had around 20 people in that group. So we are 5 or 6 postdocs. Postdocs mean a researcher who received already a PhD and working after a PhD. So we were 5 or 6 postdocs, and the rest were graduate students. And almost all of us were physicists with physics graduates. And now, if I look at where all of us are in different countries. Some of us are in Europe, some of us in Asia, some of us in the United States, and so on and so on. And what kind of careers they pursued. So it's a concrete example. So a friend of mine, my close colleague, he's working now in Berlin in a company that develops algorithms for self-driving cars. Another friend is working now in San Diego in a biotech company. He's originally a mathematician, okay, very good mathematician. A friend of mine and also another colleague, he's working in a company called Synaptics. It is a company in Silicon Valley. It is a company that develops sensors for smartphones. Okay, when you, so here is a smartphone. when you press, it has to register your, the sensor has to register your touch, right? So there is a layer that does that. And Synaptics is one of the leading companies that produce that sensor. So one of us is working there. One student is working in Wall Street in a high-tech financial company. Okay, so this is a company that develops mathematical models of stock market and invests in stock market. So his works there. There are a lot of physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists in Wall Street. So they do quantitative modeling of the market. Okay, that kind of job is becoming more and more popular as investing transitions to more quantitative type of investing, more computer-driven investing, or more algorithm-driven investing. So what else? Who else? Okay, another person is working in Amsterdam now in a company called Booking.com. All of you know, when you want to book a hotel, you go to Booking.com usually, right? So that person is working in Amsterdam in Booking.com as a data analyst. Who else? I'm sure there are other examples. So these are the people just from one group, okay? All sorts of careers. Some of them, of course, some of them continue in science. I became a professor. Some of my other friends became professors. So all sorts of different opportunities. So when I just moved to Kazakhstan, when I told them this story, this is an evolving story, right? I left the United States. Some of my friends found jobs in different areas of industry, and later some others. Now I told you the current story, but still the idea was the same. Right? All the physicists in one group now working in different fields, and the answer or the counter arguments that I was always given at the time when I, for example, speak to parents of students, right, or future students or future students, they always say, yeah, but this is Kazakhstan. This is not America. This is Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, there are no that kind of jobs. And if my son or my daughter gets a physics degree, he or she will just work as a teacher in a high school. My counter argument to that, again, and this is what you see now in front of you, is that job market is like truly global. Job market is truly global. The amount of young Kazakh professionals who are working abroad is huge. I don't know the exact number, but it's huge. And vice versa. The amount of foreigners who are working in Kazakhstan is huge. Job market is international. After you graduate, you'll be looking for a job international skills. And vice versa. When you're looking for a job in Kazakhstan, you'll be competing not only with other citizens of Kazakhstan, you'll be competing with foreigners too. So job market is international. Okay, that's what I wanted to say about careers. Okay, so if there are questions
I'd like
or
also
comments.
to comment on that, or probably add my own perspective. And I also have been, well, studying that question because I have some personal interest with it now because I've already graduated. And I've searched, well, I've heard other stories as well. And actually, it may look like there's nothing like, there are not many things that you could do at first, but that's not true. The possibilities are really vast with, well, when you graduate. And even, well, there is a stereotypical way probably among students that you will go to academia, you will be a professor or a researcher if you go to physics, and like you'll go for your PhD eventually and so on. But I think that, well, it's just stereotype, because in reality you have really many ways to go, starting from industry, going to other stuff. And I think that not the majority of all people going after PhD actually end up in academia. So I don't think that you should really worry right now about your career, like future career, like 10 or 20 years, because you will always have, well, as long as you're young right now, you will always have a chance to change your career, to steer your career towards what you feel like. And for now, I would advise you to pick a major that you really enjoy doing. Like, for example, I picked physics not because I thought about being a professor or so on. I just liked solving problems using math, and would also like to use some computational tricks and so on. And I just was enjoying all this process of learning. And all the other stuff like career and so on, I think they will come as a byproduct of you actually enjoying what you're doing, no matter what sphere it is.
If I may, I would also like to add something to the question regarding the content of this four-year bachelor program. So I guess the question was what will be during these 4 years. I could say that you would frequently feel that this feeling of being overwhelmed, like it's because the way of thinking, the approach is so unfamiliar to you. In the first year, it's okay, like physics 1 and physics 2 are basically things that you have learned at high school. But then there comes classical mechanics, electrodynamics, quantum physics, and then you start thinking, it's like it's so different from what I've seen before. And at the beginning, it will always feel like something so hard, but given time, given effort, you will be able to somehow be fluent in it. Like, you know, you will feel like it's in your domain of operation, and you can basically absorb things like that. And this is great because it has something to do with what Professor ABDIKAMALOV said, this problem solving skills, because with this new approach I've learned, like new way of thinking, I would say, you would you would easily be able to start doing anything basically, because I had experience in doing a little bit of computer science, specifically machine learning and computer vision, and it came easily because of all this math I've been doing before during the physics courses. So that's basically what I wanted to add.
Thank you. So questions or comments?
So did we answer your question, Murat?
Yes, thank you all. It was useful.
If you have any more questions, you can ask, unmute yourself or just write.
I think we've got one question from the chat.
So yes, let me read the question. So talking about academia, what are the hot topics in physics research nowadays? So as a student, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Why is that? First reason, one reason, not necessarily the first or the most important reason, is that what is hot today will change a lot. Okay, for example, in my field, okay, my field is astronomy, astrophysics, computational physics, things like that. Around 2010, the hottest topic was exoplanets, because a satellite called Kepler was launched, and it was delivering very successful results, and the community was discovering a lot of new planets in other stellar systems. It was a really hot topic. But a few years later, in 2015, gravitational waves were detected. And all of a sudden, gravitational waves became the hottest topic, the hottest topic in astronomy. So these things changed. I remember having a conversation. One of my close friend was depressed at the time, in around 2012, I think. She was a bit depressed. She said, "Oh, my field is not very popular. I will not be able to find a good job." And she was working on gravitational waves. And I remember I told her at the time, just wait a little bit. Right now, yes, exoplanets are too hot, but after gravitational waves are detected, it will completely change. And that's exactly what happened. And she is now a professor in one of the most major universities in the world. So these things change a lot, okay? So right now you are a student, right? You will start your journey, and even if you start in a field which you think is hot right now, there is no guarantee that that field will be hot in 3 years or 4 years. So don't worry about that. The most important thing, though, is to become if you want to succeed in academia, is to become a good researcher, Because by the time, let's say, you finish your PhD, even if you work on something which was not hot, that is okay, because your future employers or professors who may hire you to work with them after you finish your PhD, they will not look at whether what you do is hot or not. No, they will ask different question, which is, how well did you do that work? What is the quality of the work that you did? Okay, and based on the quality, how well you execute, they'll hire you to postdoc position, for example, where now you have to do something which is really hard. Because when you are working as a postdoc, your next step is to become a professor. And when you want to become a professor, you have to demonstrate to the university that you know how to find hot topics and work on hot topics. Then it becomes important. But before that, when you are a student, the most important thing should be doing a good work. Okay. First, do a good work. Learn how to do a good work. It's not easy. Learn how to do good work. Learn how to do good science, and then after you get your PhD, then you can work on a hot topic and demonstrate that you can find hot topics, so that when you become a professor, when you apply for professorship, you'll be a promising candidate. Okay, so that's my answer. If you work on a hot topic right now, or if in a few years the topic that you choose becomes hot, that's even better. But if it doesn't become hot, that's okay, because when you become a postdoc, then you choose your own topic most of the time, and then you can demonstrate that you can find hot topic. Okay, so that's my answer. Okay, from your point of view, what are the most important personal characteristics of a researcher? From my perspective, I have a very simple answer to that. Very simple answer as well. So what are the good qualities of a researcher? I would say that what I'm about to tell is the good quality of any professional. Any professional. Here is the most important quality. The person who is really driven, who really want to achieve what they want to achieve, that's the most important quality. I have seen many examples. I'm not old enough that I have seen many examples. I have met many people. I have met some amazingly talented people. I have met not so talented people, but who are very driven. And I have seen amazingly talented people to fail badly. And I have seen not so talented people, not so talented by some usual, let's say, science, who later become really talented, not talented, very successful. And the most important thing, in all cases, the most important thing is a drive. If you are driven, if you really want it, that's the most important characteristic. So there is a saying which goes along the lines of, it doesn't matter how good you are. What matters is how strongly you want it. People who have the desire, who have the drive, are people who are likely to achieve a lot. That's the most important quality. And I have seen that in NU students also. During first year, for example, I worked at NU for 7 years, and I have seen a few generations of students who already graduated, who came as first year students and then who graduated. And I can tell you now, and those students who had fire in their eyes, who were really enthusiastic, who were really driven, who really wanted to grow or to achieve, those ended up being more successful. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Of course, there are other things that are important. I mean, if you want to achieve a lot, it's also, I mean, luck also plays a role, right? Some people are very unlucky, but when everything else is equal, your drive, your desire is the most important thing.
Okay, thank you for your answer. If you have any more questions, you have an opportunity to ask now.
I have a feeling that well, people here are not don't really know what to ask. I mean, like, they are interested in everything, but we don't know where to start.
So in that case, a good point. Thank you for raising this point. So just any thought you are having, just raise it, start a comment, and we will start the discussion. Okay, the discussion will follow naturally. Okay, so anything that you are thinking about, not sure about, just tell about it. Don't be shy. If you're thinking about it, most likely someone else is also thinking about it. Maybe I have been thinking about it too. So I'm sure we'll have a good conversation afterwards. Okay. What struggles did you have as a physics student? I think I had a lot of struggles. So here is the one thing that I heard, which was very discouraging to me. one of my professors was a not so smart person. And at some point, when I was undergrad, like you are, he told to me, he said, "You're not going to be a good scientist because you are too tall," he said. "Because all the good scientists are short and you are too tall. You're not going to be a good scientist." And, and I was stupid enough to believe him. I may not be a good scientist, but not because I'm tall or short. It has nothing to do with that. So yes, these kind of things are this self-doubt, especially when you hear people say things like that. When you hear older people say something like that, older, more experienced, respected people, it can create doubts, right? You can create doubts. And I think that was the biggest mistake that I made in my career also, because there were situations, I would say, important situations where in my head, I gave up already. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I cannot do it. It's too hard. I cannot do it. And later realized that in those occasions, at least on a few of the occasions, I was really close to doing something much better than what I ended up doing. So doubt, lack of confidence, I suffered from that, okay? And I think everybody suffers from that, almost everybody. So that's one struggle. Another struggle is, I would say that's the biggest struggle. Not believing in yourself is the biggest struggle. Not having the confidence is the biggest struggle. I think when you have a confidence, when you truly believe that you are an important person and you have some important contribution to make, it's harder to stop you. It's harder to stop you.
So we have a question here. Is it possible to get a physics minor? How useful is it?
Yes, it is possible to get a physics minor. How useful it is, I want to raise another point. This is something which Elon Musk said, okay? And it also comes back to my comment about intelligence. So Elon Musk has a degree in physics, right? And he says that one of the things he said about physics is that physics allows you to do first principle thinking. First principle thinking, what is it? What is first principle thinking? So most of the time, we don't think from first principles. When I say first principles, I mean the most basic, the deepest, the most fundamental, universal laws that govern how things develop, right? How processes work. So there are fundamental principles, universal principles, physics laws, basically. So that's the most fundamental thing, right? So when you think about something like, for example, in the case of Elon Musk, he's thinking, let's say, about how to build a battery more efficiently. He tries to start from first principles. This is not how most of the time people think, okay? Most of the time people think by analogy. People think by analogy. So you have this experience today, and tomorrow, tomorrow about similar situation, you judge based on your previous experience. Like the most simple case is that, for example, here is a stereotype. Stereotype is the best example, because how stereotypes develop. Some people see a group of stereotypes about, I don't know, some nations or some nationalities, let's say, right? There are stereotypes about some nationalities. How do they develop? They develop because of this thinking by analogy, because you meet some group of people. There is, for example, in the US, there is this analogy. If you have a British accent, people assume that you are smarter. Okay, it's very common. So when you see advertisements in the US, very often, not often, but sometimes people who speak have British accent. And so there is that kind of stereotype. Where did that stereotype came from? Are British people smarter than Americans? Probably not, but there is that stereotype. Where does it come from? It comes from the following situation. Some British people move to the US, let's say, and people who move from one country to another, these are usually more energetic, smarter people, right? On average, people who move from one country to another, they are more driven people. So they may give an impression that they are smarter than others. So people saw them and they developed that opinion that they may be smarter. So that next time when they see a British accent, when they hear a British accent, they may think by analogy. They're not starting from first principles, they are thinking by analogy. So this is just one example. I hope it was clear. But why this is dangerous? Why this is dangerous? Well, it is very convenient and useful on everyday life because you don't have to think hard. Starting from first principle is very hard. It takes a lot of time, right? So thinking by analogy is faster. It's more convenient. You can come to a conclusion very fast, not necessarily correct conclusion, but very, very fast. But that's also dangerous because your analogy that you're basing on can be wrong. Because things change, technology develop, and your opinions or your prejudices, whatever your base that you use for thinking by analogy, maybe already is not valid anymore. Then your thinking will be wrong too. Whereas first principle thinking is always correct because you start from the most fundamental laws that are always that are the most universal and that are always correct. Okay, that's by definition the laws of physics, right? So the physics laws are the laws that are the most deep, the most fundamental, and the most universal. So studying physics or getting minor in physics helps you to develop that perspective, which it's not my opinion. Okay, it is my opinion, but I'm not telling you my opinion here. It is what Elon Musk said. Physics gives you this ability to start from first principle. Okay, that was one perspective. Okay, if anybody wants to comment about that, you're welcome to do that.
I'd like to add something to that regarding this first principle and analogy thinking. It is like, being a cook or a chief. When a cook uses recipes that were already invented, he does basically make new things. But a chief is so much different and so much better than just a cook because he knows which ingredients are better mixing and which flavors and tastes would be nicer together. That's why he's able to invent new recipes. He can make new types of delicious foods, while cook only makes those that were already present before.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Nice analogy. But also, I would like to probably make it more clear that you're talking about physics minor, and you're not, well, I don't think that you're gonna take enough courses, enough to really develop this first principle field, because even among physics students, as I noticed, not everyone still gets this principle. Even I struggle sometimes. And if you just want to take the physics minor, I think you're going to take around 4 or 5 courses, or maybe more, that are optional for you. And of course, you are probably interested in other uses of physics minor, not just like the development of this nice way of thinking, but probably something more specific, like in your career. Well, I've got a friend who is a mathematician, and she got the physics minor. And well, the story is interesting because at first she was a physics student, then she switched to math, as many other people who struggle with physics for some reason. And in order not to lose all her time with physics courses that she took in the first year, she decided to, well, take the physics minor. And as the result, I think she started doing research sooner than her peers, even though it was in math. Like, it's a different field, it's not physics research. But the thing is that she started thinking about research sooner than other mathematicians. And it really, well, paid a long way for her, because she's now doing a good master's in a good university. And I think that is just useful to, yeah, it's still useful. Maybe you will not develop this first principle feeling, but it's still gonna be useful for you, even if you take like maybe 3 or 4 courses. So if you have a chance, probably you should really consider taking a minor in physics.
Well, does this answer your question? Now I have a question for Olzhas as alumnus. What courses you liked most, and why?
well, it's a personal question. And for some reason, I think that my experience will not translate to others, because even among my peers, physics peer students, even among them, I don't share my preferences regarding courses. But well, it's hard to pick. Actually, I like probably most of the physics courses. And there is like, you see, there's a Euler diagram between something really vague and unclear and hard, and something that is just simply fun to do. And there's something in the middle, which is vague and fun to do. And these are the courses that I like the most, like electrodynamics. It's one very good example, because we have a really good professor, Professor Valerianopoulos, or Kostas, we usually refer to him as Professor Kostas. And he is really good at like providing problems that you've never seen before, even on exams. And you might feel like it's unfair because really you haven't studied it, you haven't solved such problems. Why would you like solve it on exams? But this hardness or hardship that you go through really develop your like analytical skills, I think. They really prepare you for the outer world, outside university, this harsh world, as they say. So I really enjoyed this electrodynamics for being really tough on me. Also, I liked, well, it's probably, from my experience, like no one from physics didn't like this course. I think it's thermodynamics. And at first, I also didn't enjoy it too, because it was really, really unclear. Like, you can't understand anything, almost anything. The book is really old. I think it's called Kittle's book about thermodynamics. It was really old, and the concepts are hard to grasp. And the professor is also explaining in a vague way. And I think no one was gonna attend his lectures back in the day. And from one perspective, I can understand them. But now when I look back, I really would like to take this course again, because now with more experience, with a different point of view, different perspective, I would say, I think that if I struggled a bit more, I would really love this course, because thermodynamics itself, not the course, but just the sphere of physics is really, really powerful. And yeah, so these are probably 2 or 3 courses that I enjoy the most. And of course, the computational physics, because it's computations, and they are not like simple theory that you try to solve for beautiful cases. You actually code something in order to solve some less beautiful cases, which are abundant in real life. So not everything in real life are such beautiful cases where you solve in physics courses. So be prepared for that too.
Thank you for your answer. I hope this information will help our freshman students in the future. And what about you, Abutalif?
Okay, I'd like to add something regarding the courses I like. I have basically the same point of view, the way that the courses that were difficult and at the same time interesting, those are the most interesting, the best courses I choose. I would choose basically quantum mechanics, I guess, because it has something very profoundly different from the things we've seen before.
Yeah, thank you. Professor, what can you add about like these favorite courses, or what courses were you liked in your university years?
Okay. I think I like for my university years. Well, whatever I studied, I tried to study well. Not necessarily because I was interested in this topic, but for me, I view it as a challenge, more like a competitive challenge. I shouldn't be, I mean, even if I was not interested in the course, I tried to study it well from just from competitive point of view. But I want to give this more. I mean, I agree with this Abutalif and the Olzhas. I have a similar perspective. But I wanted to add one more thing to this. No matter what you study or even movies you watch or books you book, I would say the most important principle, one of the most important principles should be the following. The new things that you study should force you to look at the subject in a new way. So it has to enhance your perspective. I think that must be one of the most important considerations when you choose not only a new course, but it's obvious in the case of new course, of course, it's something you don't know, and when you study it, it gives you a new perspective. But novels, movies, everything, okay? It has to always enhance your perspective. It has to always force you to get out of your comfort zone, out of your mental comfort zone. I mean, you have some opinion about something, but you always have to look for books or material or experiences that forces you to get out of that comfort zone and look at the thing that in a different way. Okay, that's what I wanted to add.
Guys, if you have a question about the courses, you can ask now. Okay, then can I ask Olzhas one more question? Not question about telling your short story at the new. What could you advise for first-year students and anything about our university?
So just in general, not for physics students only, right? Well, it's hard to say something for sure because all the peers that I have, all the previously fourth-year students, we all have different experiences. We've gone to different places, completely different, and still I think we are all more or less successful in our own ways. So I would advise not to just look at somebody and say, I'm gonna do the same thing as him, I'm gonna follow his path. I think you need to find your own path, but of course you need to be wary of experience of other students and other people, but just take it with a grain of salt, because everyone's gonna have their own experience. So don't trust anyone if they're gonna judge you based on their own experience. Think for yourself, and if you're like, okay, about the university, take many opportunities. Well, take opportunities that university gives you, and it's not just taking research with professor as soon as you can or studying some interesting courses. It's just attending some student clubs. Like I've participated in several clubs and I've really enjoyed it. I've made a lot of friends there, a lot of connections, so to speak, networking outside STEM field. It's really fun to talk to other people, not just in physics major or like science majors, like in humanities. So don't have your don't narrow your look at things. Talk to many people around you, do many stuff. Right now you're very young, you have a lot of time, especially as undergrad. You can spend this time on clubs, you can spend this time on like learning new skills like playing guitar or something else. Just don't feel very upset when something goes wrong in study. Yeah, you may fail a course, you may be angry with the professor for for example, but don't think that it's gonna be always like this. Time really changes and your life can really change too. So just enjoy the process while you're still at the young age.
There was a question in the comments from Seken.
about aerospace and mechanical engineering. I think he has this question because he wants to do some rocket science. He wants to make his own rockets, maybe like Elon Musk. I don't know. But I think if he chooses physics as a major, it will be useful for him. Because as Professor ABDIKAMALOV said, Elon Musk himself is a physicist. He has a bachelor degree in physics, but he was still able to not only make his own rockets, but make some kind of revolution in this field. And in his own, from his own words, he said that all the attributes are coming from the way of thinking he obtained while studying physics.
One example I want to mention, since Abutalif mentioned Elon Musk again. When I was about to leave my previous institution, people from SpaceX came to our department, and they were advertising position at SpaceX to physicists. And the job they were describing was to model burning of gas in a rocket engine. And why they were advertising among physicists? Well, because, for example, in our group, at least, we are doing big simulations, and they also do big simulations on a supercomputer, right? Before they build the rockets, they do simulations on a supercomputer, right? And there they have a hot burning gas. And in our group, we were studying explosion of star, and they also you have a similar aero gas dynamics, and that's why they were advertising here. So, and one of us applied to that job, and unfortunately, that guy didn't get the job, and not because he was not suitable, but I think because that was, I mean, SpaceX attracts the best people in the world, and I think the competition is so high that they didn't get your job, but that guy was qualified. So, what is a global point here? What is a more broader point? The broader point, you can the underlying principles that govern how rockets work is laws of physics, right? So as a physicist or as an engineer, you still will be applying the basic laws that govern the processes: conservation of energy, conservation of momentum, and so on and so on. Okay, so that's I think that's the most important point here. So as a physicist, you learn the most underlying principles, which works everywhere. And from that perspective, it's a broad skill.
Okay, coming to the topic, Abutalif wanted to talk about what actions lead to the failure of a course or like degree even.
Okay, thank you for mentioning this. Well, generally, I would say that there is one thing that is the most important. It's priorities. If a student doesn't set his priorities from the beginning in a proper way, he is basically condemning himself to fail a course. And if he does it consequently several times, then he will definitely fail a degree. So regarding these priorities, sometimes it might seem like at the beginning, well, there are not so many tasks, and maybe I can do it later. That's a bad approach. It's better to do the task as soon as you get the task. I mean, you have a problem to solve, a problem set, solve it as soon as possible. Don't wait until the very last moment, because every time it becomes a habit. Every time you do it, and then eventually you come up to the place where you can't do it at the last moment. It's just too hard. And if you had a little bit more time, you probably succeeded. But at the end of the day, you are failing the course because you didn't prepare yourself mentally in the first place to finish it in a right way.
Okay, thank you for sharing your thought, Professor. did you notice any difference or notable difference between students that fails course and straight A students?
Yes, I think that this brings me back to the points that I made earlier, right? I think the most important characteristic of a student who is successful, or anybody who is successful, is this drive, is a desire to be successful, right? So in my opinion, that's the most important thing. It's not only my opinion on that. There has been studies of successful people in very different fields: sport, music, science, acting, art. Doesn't matter. In every field, people who are on top, who are most successful, are people who work hardest. Okay, it seems that that's a universal rule. It doesn't matter on what you do. No matter what you do, the most important thing is your drive. If you're really, really driven, you are more likely to be successful. So that applies to courses too.
Maybe Olzhas, you can add something.
Well, I usually don't ask my friends whether they are straight A students or fail course, but I've known one friend of mine. He was actually my roommate on foundation, and for some reason he failed some easy courses so often, and I was like really amazed at him. But despite that, I can see his drive in different place, like probably entrepreneurship, or he's really active in other stuff. Probably he's not gonna be really cool at math or physics, but he's really energetic and has a passion in terms of entrepreneurship. And it's just one example. So I think straight A students, I don't have actually many friends who are straight A students. So I can think that, yes, I agree that they are really, well, probably they try to complete every course on A from like competitive perspectives. Like they really need to like keep the space up of being a good student. But I would also not like underestimate other students who fail courses, because as I think Professor Malafarina said, one of other professors in physics department, that we don't know stories of other people. Who knows, maybe he's trained like his guitar skills for the whole night and he's gonna be a really big shot in music in the future. Who knows? So I try not to judge people especially based on some like courses that we take. But yeah, there of course must be some difference between students, but not like one is better or one is worse. Just maybe difference in their perspectives regarding courses and probably some other stuff.
I forgot to tell about another example of a career path. Coming back to the, we also had one PhD student at that time in my previous institute. And recently I was watching TV, one of the international channels, one of the most important news channels in the world. And there, all of a sudden she appears as a science correspondent in that channel. So that's another career path for a physicist. Not only physics, I mean, she could have in any other major.
Yeah.
May I ask if there are students from the foundation year? Like, are there a lot of foundation year students?
No. Foundation year or maybe ex-foundation.
I see. There is a majority of people who are from foundation. Basically, all of people are from a foundation. I see they're raising hands in the chat. So I talked to some
people from the foundation, and I very often hear the question, well, I want to go to do something with space, some advanced science. I want to ride a rocket and like explore Mars, and basically all those like childhood dreams that are coming true in this age. And they always ask me, what should I do? I mean, you're already a fourth-year student, and probably I should go to the engineering. I'd like to add, if you are into space, if you want to be in the frontier, in my opinion, it's better to be a physicist than an engineer, because as an engineer, you probably will be staying on Earth, fixing, building, creating, inventing. But as a physicist, you probably will be able to go out of the boundaries of the known. So that's my opinion. If anybody else has something to add to it.
I also noticed that people at first tend to romanticize science, like it's so cool, rockets and stuff, and I want to be a scientist. I am in love with science. But I've like seen a joke on the internet, well, not probably a joke, but a satire, that actually you're not in love with science. Well, I can't remember the joke, but the essence of this joke is that when you're in love with science, you enjoy all the hard stuff that you have to deal with in science. It's like writing, like sitting all night doing something again and again, like in PhD probably. All this hard stuff that are not probably on the surface when you look at it from a side. That's when you enjoy it, that's when you know that you're in love with science. And not like, so I'm not gonna discourage you from learning like interesting stuff, of course, but just keep in mind that the real test comes when you start to actually deal with science and not just look at it from the surface.
Very good point.
I remember this satire. At the end, the person who explains the science, he says, "You're not in love with science, you're just flirting with it."
Yeah, that's the one.
Anyway, yeah, there are lots of opportunities, and you can do all sorts of things. Maybe I can advertise one project which is going on at Nazarbayev University. We have this energetic cosmos laboratory, which was founded by Nobel laureate Professor George Smoot. So this laboratory is operating. We have one of the fastest telescopes in the world, which is currently installed in South Kazakhstan in Asetorgan Observatory. It's a plateau Asetorgan. It's a very beautiful place. So you have an opportunity to work on this kind of flagship, really, truly flagship projects. Lots of opportunities. Okay, so lots of opportunities to, and I would say that maybe to conclude, right? I think your generation has more opportunities than any other generation before you. Okay, nobody before you had this many opportunities. This is because, again, pedagogical or materials to study. For example, you have now YouTube. A lot of amazing lectures available on YouTube. I wish I had that when I was your age or at your stage. So if you want to succeed, if you want to do something amazing, nobody before you had this many opportunities that you have. So I would say be, what's the word? I mean, look at it optimistically. Look at it optimistically, okay? So the only thing is that you have to work. I mean, you have to work really hard, find what is really good at, and I'm sure that you have lots of good things come your way.
Yeah, we are coming to finish. If you have any question to our speakers, you can ask now, the last opportunity. If not, I want to thank our speakers. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts, experience, ideas, telling stories. I think it's very useful for students and also for myself. I find it useful. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was. I think this is a great event, and I think where we can share, this informal setting, this kind of perspectives, this kind of stories, and so on. So thank you for organizing, and thank you to students for joining, and to Olzhas and Abutalif also. It was nice to see you and to talk to you, to exchange thoughts, ideas, experiences. Thank you.